Yeah, so he wears a suit all the time. And he doesn't have a face. And he kidnaps little kids. What do you mean you don't think he's real? Hey guys, how's it going? Help me out here. Fred doesn't think that Slenderman is real. What do you mean you don't think... Why does nobody believe in Slenderman? Slenderman is absolutely real. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Meet me over on the couch, and I'll grab some tea. We'll have a little chat, all right? I'll see you guys over on the couch. Welcome back to the least professional channel on YouTube. How's everybody doing out there today? So, Slenderman. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about Slenderman today, but it's going to spin off into some other things. So just hang tight if you're unsure of how this video is going to go. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. First, there was something I was going to tell you guys to start the video. I can't remember exactly what it was. It must not have been that important. I'm going to take a sip of tea here while I'm thinking about it. Nope, not coming back to me. I guess we'll just jump into the video. So in 2014, there was these two girls that they had a friend that they took out to this park, and they wound up stabbing her 19 times, attempting to murder her, leaving her for dead. The friend would crawl out and get to a roadway. She was found by a car, and luckily she survived. They arrested the two girls and they asked them, "Why did you do this to your friend?" And their response was that they were trying to please Slenderman. And of course, at the time, that kind of, the people that had never heard of Slenderman before, all of a sudden it became national news. It was all over the place, and people were asking, like, what is Slenderman? Where did it start? And it kind of blew up and became this big phenomenon. And of course, there was a lot of people at the time that were like hearing about this for the first time, thinking, is this an urban legend? Is this something that was like made up online? Is this a real thing? And in case you didn't know, Slenderman was created in an online forum. So in 2009, the Something Awful forums had a Photoshop contest. Whoever could Photoshop the creepiest image and then show it off online and try to get people to kind of believe it and buy into it. And one user on there came up with a couple of photos that were photos of children. They were old looking 40s, 50s type of photos, black and white, with kids, playing on playground equipment in the one. In the background of these photos was this tall, lanky guy wearing a suit with no face, and they called him Slenderman. And they wound up taking the photo and they started kind of spreading it around online. Well, shortly after they started spreading it, a creator on YouTube came up with the idea to make a series of videos called Marble Hornets. And the entire idea behind Marble Hornets was, it turns out it was an ARG, but there was a story with Slenderman tied into it, and some friends that were, running from Slenderman. They weren't sure what was going on. This thing blew up. It became really popular, and it kind of propelled Slenderman into a more mainstream audience. So in a sense, when Slenderman was created on that forum, he became real in a way. Now, before I can discuss too much of that, I want to discuss something that's a little bit stranger, something I haven't talked about yet, but it's the idea of a tulpa. So some people believe that ideas that start in your head can manifest themselves into reality given enough power behind them. And these things are called tulpas. At a very basic level, and I don't want to go too in depth, maybe I'll make a future video covering tulpas specifically, but at a very basic, high level, a tulpa is just basically everybody, a single person or a group of people will have this idea, this concept, and it'll start to manifest itself into reality. And some people believe that once this happens, this tulpa, this thing, can become sentient, and it can kind of start doing whatever it wants to do, and it can interact with the real world. It can cause real world harm, but it's more or less a legend. There's no evidence of anything like that actually existing. Although, depending on how you believe, there could be something that was construed and brought into reality that we maybe were all just kind of tricked into thinking had always been a part of reality. So there's a lot to deal with there and a lot to unpack. Like I said, maybe I'll make an entire video on those. But when I was researching this, it kind of got me thinking, what is real? And actually, what does something being real mean? So in a very literal sense, when we think of something being real, we think of something that has a tangible connection to the world around us as we experience it. So things that we can see, touch, taste, smell, hear, any one of the senses, or using some kind of an equipment to measure. So electrical energy, electrical fields, we consider those real because we can measure them. So we consider something real if it's tangible, if it's in the world around us. But if we limit ourselves to only thinking about what's real in that sense, there's a couple of questions that we start to kind of ask. So one of those questions is, what about thoughts? Are thoughts real? What about our dreams? We dream at night and we see things in our dreams. Those seem real at the time. Are they real in some sense? If we can't use our senses or instruments to measure something, does that mean that it doesn't exist? Do our thoughts not exist? Do our dreams not exist? Where's that line at? So our brains are very complex things. So I want to do a little experiment, if you'll indulge me for just a second. I promise I'm not going to come out of the computer. But I need you to close your eyes for a second. Okay, so when you close your eyes, I want you to imagine a big ball. It doesn't matter what color it is. You can pick blue, red, green, yellow, whatever color you like. Just a big ball sitting there in the middle of a floor. Now imagine that ball on the floor is in the middle of a room with an open window. The sun is shining in. You see the trees outside. You see the wind is kind of blowing the leaves on the trees. It's a nice summer day. You see the grass, the green grass. You see the nice open field just outside the window. And take a minute to just take that scene in. Does it look real? If you think about it hard enough, if you imagine it hard enough, does it seem real? Can you almost hear the wind blowing? Maybe some wind chimes? Can you see the sun shining through? Now open your eyes. If you were able to see that scene, was it real? Your brain thought it was. Your brain was imagining this thing that seemed real, right? So thoughts and images can be boiled down to electrical signals and chemicals that are sent between synapses in our brain. And I know I'm getting a little technical here, but just bear with me. The pictures that we see in our minds, the thoughts that we have, are our brain's way of interpreting a complex network of signals that are passed between neurons. So kind of in a sense, this makes every thought something real, because if a thought is an electrical signal going between neurons or a chemical going between, that's a tangible object. So if every thought, every dream that you have is those tangible objects moving around, in a sense that makes those real. And in a sense, if those thoughts are real and those dreams are real and those images you produce in your head are real, then every legend, every tale that's ever been told is actually real. Slenderman, the Goatman, Bigfoot, Chupacabra, ghosts, ghouls, every other kind of thing that we don't have any way to physically prove exists, they're all real, because as soon as they become a thought, they begin to exist. But you had to know there was a but coming. This does cause a problem. So we all have to live in a shared reality. In order to coexist as a social species in this world, we have to kind of agree that reality is a certain way. We have to agree on some basic parameters to live our daily lives and to get through. Now, if we all agree that something exists and we act upon that belief, then it becomes our reality. Now, normally how this manifests itself, for the majority of the time, is that we agree on something existing because we all have the same perception of her. We all have the same, I can look at Fred here and I can touch Fred and I can flick Fred, push him over. He'll get mad at me if I push too much. But I can do all of that. And if you guys were here, you can see him on video, obviously. But if you were here, you could do the same thing. So we would agree we're in a shared reality, that Fred exists because we can all manipulate and touch him and poke him and stuff the same way. When we have something like that we all can agree on, then it becomes that shared belief and it becomes something that's just generally accepted. So things like the color of the sky. You can look up at the sky and see during the day that the sky is blue, or it's white if there's clouds above. At night it's black. You can see stars in the sky. So we've got all of these things that, if you're questioning, if you're sitting there and you think you see something, if there's somebody else around, you can ask them, hey, do you see that too? And you're checking to see do they see the same thing that you see? And if they do, well, that raises the possibility, that raises the chance that whatever you see is actually there. If, however, you turn to your friend and you say, hey, do you see that over there? And your friend's like, no, what are you talking about? Well, then you start to wonder, am I seeing things? Is my brain making things up? So that's all part of living in a shared reality and kind of having, it's so that we can function in a day-to-day life, in a day-to-day world. When it comes to those beliefs about things being real, if a belief's harmful, it'll cause pain and suffering, and it's normally something that we try to avoid. We normally rely on our senses and the scientific method to narrow down what's real and what's not real so that we can maximize the quality of life, human life, and life in general. Now, sometimes the desire to maximize the quality of life, it gets kind of polluted a little bit with people when they have individual desires and they're looking out for themselves over somebody else. And we see this, and especially when it comes to like companies and wealth, people are inherently greedy, and that's not everybody. There are people out there that are very generous. They aren't worried about like absorbing as much wealth or as much power as they possibly can, but there are people that are like that. So those methods, while they work to help us kind of figure out what reality is like, sometimes they get bent and twisted a little bit when it comes to people making excuses and making up reasons for, well, I need this because of this, even though it's not actually benefiting or adding quality of life to people overall. Now, when those girls that I mentioned earlier were trying to sacrifice their friend to Slenderman, he was very real to them. If Slenderman didn't exist in their minds, they wouldn't have done it. And this is the danger inherent in some of these things that are made up. They're made up for fun or to get something creepy, creepy feeling or something like that. And what winds up happening, people will inevitably take it too serious. They'll believe that it's something real, and in extreme cases, to the point of harming others to protect that thing or to honor that thing. Like these girls did with Slenderman. They believed that he was real, and so that they were doing something they thought would honor Slenderman, and that was kind of their goal. In their minds, he was real. And that's what I mean by when you start to think of something in your mind and you have a thought pop in your mind, it becomes real. And it becomes even more real when it has a tangible effect on the world that we perceive as real. So Slenderman just inside of their minds doesn't hurt anything. When Slenderman starts to affect them, it's really their minds at work and them talking to each other, but when it starts to affect them in that way, it becomes a crutch. It becomes something that if this crutch wasn't there, they wouldn't have done what they did. And the biggest reason for that is that humans are inherently a social species, and we don't want to harm each other. There's a catalyst that's required for one person to do harm for another in normal circumstances. Now, those catalysts could be any number of things, including things like defending yourself or believing that you're defending something, even if it's something that's not accepted as real by most people, and any number of other things. There's a million reasons that somebody could choose to want to harm somebody else, but there has to be a reason there. So the overall point of this, and hopefully it kind of fits together a little bit, you can always ask me questions down in the comment, and I'd be happy to clarify anything and maybe make another video to make it a little bit more clear. But the basic premise is, yes, Slenderman was made up on a message board. He's not real in the sense that we normally think of as real, as in you can't go and physically interact with Slenderman. You can't take pictures of him, no matter how many pictures are out there. You can't get video of him. You can't measure anything to do with Slenderman in a lab anywhere, because he's not real in that sense. And it's the same thing with every other made up story, creature, everything, even things that aren't malicious, like just general stories. They are real in a sense because they're real in our minds. And that counts for movies, that counts for monsters and the things that go bump in the night, ghosts, all of that stuff. It's real in a sense because we believe in it. And just the act of having a thought about something creates movement in your mind between the synapses, and electrical signals shoot and chemicals fly around. All of that stuff moving around is a physical manifestation of whatever it is that you have thought of in your mind. Be it something that is physical in the real world that we can touch, or something that is not physical in the real world but only exists within your mind. And the more that spreads, and especially in the internet age, 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, it took a lot more time for stories to spread outside of a localized area. That's why, like, when I do the Ohio Legends and Tales series, there's a lot of the tales and stuff that I talk about that were local to a specific area and maybe got out every once in a while but weren't really widely known, but have blown up since the late 90s, around the time when the internet started to become popular. The internet and being able to send a message or communication around the world in a split second has made it a lot easier for these stories to gain legs and kind of take off. And when they take off in that way, more and more people hear about them, and inevitably they impact somebody somewhere. And it might just be that somebody is afraid of something. Let's say they believe in it because they've read it online and they're not a skeptic, and they just kind of take it with, they read it and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe this is a real thing. And now they're afraid of it actually coming to get them. This especially happens with things like ghosts and demons, where somebody will see a video online of a ghost or a demon and they'll be kind of afraid now that if they do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, a ghost or a demon might come after him, might come after them. I think about the tarot cards, the video that I made a couple weeks ago talking about tarot cards. And there are people in this world that are afraid of tarot cards and see them as some kind of a mystic, scary, evil force and don't want anything to do with them because they're afraid of what might be attached to them. And in their minds, that fear is manifesting. And it can manifest in all sorts of ways. I mean, they could have a physical reaction to it, but it's real. So the curse or whatever they think is attached is real. It's the same thing with the Ouija board. A lot of people are afraid of a Ouija board because to them, whatever you can get from that thing is real. So in that sense, and I'm well aware that a lot of this is very semantic, depending on your definition, and most people define real in one sense. I think it's important to kind of open up your mind a little bit and expand that idea of what counts as real and look at it from a scientific sense. Because from a scientific sense, we have things that are tangible, we have things that are real, that are physical, but there's also the real implications of something which makes it real, that can cause fear, anxiety, stress, or even in some cases, laughter. If you have a funny thought, if you have a good dream in the middle of the night, maybe you have a good dream about something and your brain's firing off endorphins and it makes you happy and you wake up feeling really happy and you can't quite figure out why. Maybe you don't remember the dream, but in the moment, it was real for your brain and it caused a real physical reaction. And I think anything that can cause a real reaction like that or cause real implications to the real world, it's just as real as anything else. So that was my little pitch to say that Slenderman was real. I'll be interested to hear down in the comments what you guys think, and if you'd ever thought about it that way, maybe it still doesn't make sense. Maybe you're like, you guys saw that, right? I'm not losing my mind. Frank be doing some weird stuff, Fred. You don't have to go back there and beat your brother up. Okay. Well, hopefully he'll stay where he's at for now. If that if that does make sense to you, and you maybe hadn't thought about it before that way, let me know that down in the comments. I'd love to get the discussion started. If there's anything I can clarify, or if there's anything that I said that you think is just way off base, let me know that down in the comments too. I'd love to hear that kind of stuff. And I can make a follow-up video at any point and talk more about this. This is the kind of stuff that I've been wanting to get into, and I've kind of been, I've had some pretty deep videos, but this is kind of like scratching the surface to go over the ledge into more deep territory. Some of the stuff that I really love to talk about and really can get engaged with and talk just for hours on. I promise I'm not going to have any videos that are hours long. That would be way too much for me in one sitting, so that's not going to be a thing. But maybe I'll do a series. If you guys have something specific out of this video, or maybe some of my other videos that you'd like to see kind of elaborated on in a series format, let me know. I'll sit down and I'll write up several videos and see what comes out and make several videos like this talking about a specific thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did like it, and if you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. if you enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, or if you just enjoyed the video overall, hit the thumbs up button, like button down there. That helps YouTube know to kind of push things out a little bit. I'm trying to see like if we can start kind of pushing the videos a little bit more. YouTube's kind of finicky. It's very difficult to kind of pinpoint. As I said in my YouTube video last week before, whenever that was. Hit the like button to encourage YouTube to push it out to more people. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this idea, and if there's any discussion you'd like to start, anything that you'd like me to elaborate on. So I'll go ahead and put a video up here. This will be the one that Fred recommends that you go watch, so go check that out. I feel kind of bad for him. I've been beating him up. Other than that, everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.